Dr. Brenda, thank you so much for joining me here on the Homeschool Sanity Show. Before we dive into our topic, which is very interesting to me, and I know it will be interesting to my listeners too, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, thank you so much for the invitation to speak about one of my favorite subjects. And I applaud you for helping educate all of those individuals out there that are trying to help their students do better and be successful at learning. It's always wonderful to have good resources. And I know your program has provided that for a while. So thank you for that. My hat's off to you and your efforts. So I do appreciate the invitation. I am from Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is just outside of Dayton. And I'm an optometrist that I specialize in something called vision therapy. So for many years, I have helped thousands of kids improve their learning in math, spelling, reading, handwriting, and composition by using vision more efficiently. What a lot of people don't know is that there are over 40 visual skills for learning. Only one is 20/20 eyesight. So what I've done is I've helped in my office, in a brick and mortar office here in my area, but also now I've decided to help reach more people around the world by creating a book, Visual Secrets for School Success. Once we know you have great visual skills, how to use them so you can be more efficient in the classroom and get everything done during the day in school, and then have more time in the evening for fun, friends, and family, so you don't have that frustration that so many parents have fighting to get stuff done and not being happy in their family environment because of the restraints put on them with the hours and hours of homework. So I really want people to have quality family time, quality fun and friend time. And so that's why I'm reaching out around the world to try to help people get really great abilities to learn using their vision of maximum potential and helping understand why is it not 20/20 is not enough. Those other visual skills are equally, if not more important for learning.
Well, that is so interesting. And that is the first time I've ever heard that there are 40 visual skills that are critical for learning. So I would love to hear about what some of those are.
Mhm. So I'll give you the example. We have three categories. So visual motor, visual sensory, and visual thinking. So the one everybody's familiar with is how clear everything is. What many people don't know is even eye health, many eye diseases do not start with eye pain or blurred vision. And so making sure everything's healthy is number one. Number two, let's find out what visual skills are stopping you from being successful and what you want to be able to do. And many of those require you to focus, keep things clear over a long period of time. And that's not related to eyesight. Being able to move your eyes along the page and not lose your place. Be able to focus far away at the board and then back at your paper and remember what you see. Two things: focus, flexibility. Also, those of us that might be close to 40 know it, how focusing hard is difficult, but kids can have that problem too. And then being able to align your eyes together, making sure the two eyes are comfortable when they're pointing at the information they're trying to learn. So that's a fancy word called binocularity, but it's really eye alignment, eye focusing, eye movements or tracking. All have to work together to get that message back here in the brain. And then when it gets there, the visual thinking skills are involved. How to remember what we see, how to recall what we see, how to know directionality. Where are you in the world? Where is everything else? So a common mistake that many kids make of laterality directionality, that visual mismatch of where they think they are and everything else. So they B's and D's get reversed because they can't remember if the ball is on the right or left of the stick.
Mhm.
So those are just a few visual skills I went over really quickly. And each of those categories I spoke about have different pieces of them. Do you know how many muscles help your eyes process information to your brain of your eyes? There are 14. A lot of people don't know that. There's six extraocular muscles and there's two little muscles inside. So 14 muscles align and focus eyes and move them. None of those are directly related to eyesight. Now they give information to our brain so eyesight works, but eyesight's a whole different pathway to the brain. And so we need them all to work together very well. Those muscles have the highest innervation of any other muscle of the body. So it's very precise movement required for us to function. And so we want to make sure all of those work well So when we get that message to our brain, what are we going to do with it? And now, how efficient are we with those visual skills?
Mm. So, is it the fact that people just typically think about 20/20 vision itself, that problems in these other visual skills go unrecognized? Is that the issue?
You are right on. Exactly. Quick learner there. So basically, what's happening is the false sense of security that I see clearly with either eye, everything's fine. My eyes look fine, they don't hurt. And so our public does have a false sense of security when people run a visual screening of acuity only at 6 meters or 20 feet. How often are we reading at 6 meters for hours and hours? Very rarely. So we read up close, our cell phones, our digitals, our books, all are here. So when you look close, a lot of those skills I talked about start to trigger and have to work. And so when we're just looking far away, there's a lot of visual skills that are important. However, not nearly the amount that we have to coordinate our eyes to gather information during learning. And it's all within hand's reach. So, for example, you go to an eye exam and they put drops in your eyes and they paralyze those muscles in their eyesight and they make your pupils big. That's really important for eye health checks. So we definitely think it's a good piece of your exam. However, you paralyze your eyes from working up close and you can no idea how they work. How
Mm.
often do we go to the heart doctor and paralyze our heart to see if it works? That wouldn't happen, but yet we paralyze our eyes to see if they work for reading. Kind of crazy if you think about it. And when
Mhm.
that's what we're asking our kids to do all day long is to move their eyes, focus back and forth, focus on the print for hours and hours and hours. And if they have strain, headaches, stomach aches, we think there's something else wrong. When there's lots of neurological pathways to show you that when you use your eyes and they hurt, cause nausea, dizziness, headaches, that's all because of those muscles not working together.
Mm. Mm. So, how do you, as an optometrist, differentiate between the more typical vision issues that parents might be bringing their child to you for and those related to visual skills, such as you have been describing for us?
So we all start with a really good, thorough case history. So in my office and in many other offices, we want to find out how are things going. How's your daily living activities? How's school going? What's your favorite subject? What's your least favorite subject? So I find out, is there any struggle? Academically, that's the one. Sports, like, can you catch a ball? Do you like sports? And then if we go people on the job, are you having any fatigue, headaches, or eye strain at the end of the day? So if I hear a symptom that sometimes relates to vision problems that we talk about, then we go looking to see if those skills are working well. And so history is the first. And there's something called quality of life survey that has well researched behind it that has shown that with intervention, we can really change those symptoms, losing your place when you read, not being able to keep digits aligned when you're doing math, losing your place when you read, not being interested for close work, always looking away, those kinds of things. There's like 20 different symptoms that can definitely relate to what we check. Many kids have no idea they're not supposed to see blurry. They're not supposed to be double. They're not supposed to have pain when they read. They didn't know their eyes aren't supposed to hurt because nobody told them. I
Mm.
can't tell you often I'll talk to a child, I'll say, do you see two when you read sometimes? Oh, yeah, all the time. They never knew they weren't supposed to. And so
Mm.
nobody knows how an individual sees unless you start asking questions. And so that's what we
Mm.
try to do. Find out
Right.
which of the parts are not successful. It's kind of like an investigation. We're like Sherlock Holmes trying to figure out, is there a way that I can find out how I can make your life better by helping you use your vision but a different way, fixing
Mhm.
something. But like sometimes people have the skill set, but they don't know how to use it. Another example, I had a little girl, I said, she could remember 12 randomly digits, like numbers. When I recited them, she could repeat them back and she was failing spelling. And I was like,
Mm.
how can you be failing spelling when you can remember 12 random digits? And I said, do not see the spelling words in your head. Visualization is one important skill for remembering and comprehension. And so she said, oh, yeah, I can see them. But if I looked at them, that would be cheating. And I'm like, nope, that's not cheating. You can use that skill. And so, you know, I was like, if we don't talk to our kids, they
Wow.
sometimes don't know what they can and can't do. So I'll say, well, how did you come up with these answers? And they tell me, and I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. However, that's going to get you the wrong answer every time. And
Hmm.
so really finding out how are they thinking, what are they doing with their thinking, you know, asking lots of questions, but asking the right way. If I say, you know, do you like reading? They'll say yes. And then I'll say, when do you read? They don't, never. Or when I'm forced to read 20 minutes a day. Like, well, you know, do you ever read for fun? You know, something really interesting that nobody told you had to read. So you want to really get into what's going on with that child to find out where that frustration is coming, because that frustration then gets translated to the family world. You know, they don't feel good about themselves. They're failing. Everybody else is getting their test hand in quicker. They have to do it over. They have red marks. You know, and that's sad for young kids to already at the beginning, first, second grade, have start getting their self-esteem attacked because they don't have visual skills that allow them to perform at a better level. And so I always feel great when I have a child come in and say, you know, Dr. Monica, you told me I was smart when we did your first exam, and I didn't believe you. And now I've got all A's. And I can tell when
Hmm.
children struggle, are frustrated, they act out. There's a lot of other behaviors that go with this when they don't do well visually. And so we help a lot of kids get back on track because they feel good about themselves because they can accomplish things in less time. And again, when they have more time for fun, they're going to feel better too, feel better about themselves.
Absolutely. Well, that is really, I'm sure, an amazing and gratifying transformation for you, to see when you're working with these kids. So, one of the
Yeah,
questions I have,
it is. It's really great.
yes, I'm sure it is. So, one of the questions I have for you is there anything available to us as parents that we can use at home to help our kids improve their visual skills?
Absolutely. There are so many things. And as a matter of fact, I do have my book right behind me here, but The Visual Secrets for School Success was written for that question specifically. We always want to make sure everything's healthy. So having a thorough eye exam. So in the back, there's an appendix. How do you make sure that your optometrist is examining all the parts, that you have the pieces ready to do the fun things that we have in our book? So let me give you a little example there. Um, if I have an individual that doesn't understand fractions, you know, there's some games I put together so that they can start using vision differently to understand fractions. All of math is measuring visual space lots of different ways. So people that don't understand visual space, big, small, like 1/3 versus 1/2, kids that have a really hard time spatially with that, they think 1/3 is bigger than 1/2. They don't know
Mm,
the numbers are the same space apart. So one easy thing for little kids, little like even kids that don't like math, is start counting steps. Okay. So 2 and 3 are the same distance apart as 52 and 53 are. Individuals that don't like math think they're further apart. So the bigger the numbers, the farther apart they are. So
hmm,
adding and subtracting makes no sense. If you ask engineers if they remember counting steps, they almost always say yes. I bet 98% of the time. People that hate math don't ever remember counting steps. So how simple is it to learn math just by counting steps? And you know, count as you go up and down. Has to be the same 5 steps. And in the book, I go through how you can use that to then translate over to adding and subtracting. So if you're standing on step 5, I'll say how many steps to 7, how many to 3, how many to 1. So they'll move through the steps and then they'll eventually be able to visualize it in their mind and
hmm.
be able to do it just verbally. So that's one little example. Another
Right.
one is spelling. A lot of kids don't know that there's a vowel in every syllable of our English language, and they don't know how to break the syllables down and spell little words. So I have them visualize words. So, for example, if I use reptile, it has 7 letters. And um, so rep is 3, tile is 4. So then we label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll have them spell rep forward and backwards, visualize, REP, PER, what's the second, what's the first, what's the third. And then we do the same with tile. What's the first letter, what's the last letter, what's the second. And then I'll have them spell it forward, REPTILE, then backwards, ELITPER. Then I'll take fingers away and I'll do the same thing. And a lot of people are commuting to their sports, to their different activities. This is a thing, once they learn to visualize the syllables, you can do this in the car, memorize your spelling words. I'll say, okay, what's the first letter? What's the seventh letter? What's the sixth letter? They automatically can get it forward and backwards, and then we have them write at one time. So that's another way to use visualization and sequencing to be able to learn your spelling words in less time. So that's just two simple techniques for those two subjects. And again, we have probably 15, 20 different activities you can do for math, spelling, reading, handwriting, composition. Once you have the visual skills to do it, it's simple and you get faster at it and more efficient at it.
That is just so interesting to me. So I feel like what you're saying is that at least part of the issue for some kids is that they aren't seeing the word in their minds. And so you're making that pretty much of a requirement in order for them to spell it backwards, that they have to actually visualize that word in order to spell it correctly. Is that what you're saying?
That is certainly our goal. However, after age 12, if they don't have the ability to make a picture, that's called aphantasia. Now, there are other ways to process visual information rather than actually seeing the picture. And so first we want to find out what they can and can't do. So a simple way to ask the question of your kids is say, close your eyes and say, can you picture an ice cream cone? Can you see you're holding in a hot day and the ice cream is dripping over your fingers? And then I say, can you describe what your ice cream cone looks like? The kids that see black say they see black. Kids that describe it will actually get their hands in it, either pointy or flat bottom. They'll know the scoops, and so they can actually see that ice cream cone. So once they can visualize, then we move on to those activities we created. If they cannot visualize, and usually if they're less than age 12, by doing in vision therapy, now again, that's a skill you don't have, so we actually have to do a vision therapy sequence of working with after imaging to get them to realize what that is, and then we develop it from there. So that's one thing. Every visual skill I talk about is developed from babies from day one. Crawling is a really great example of how it develops bilaterality that also helps the two eyes work and align better together because it talks to both sides of the brain. Babies tracking and moving and reaching and grasping is all part of a beginning foundation of having individuals develop good visual skills. So we want to find out what mismatch development occurred and redevelop it if they don't have it, and then work with those other fun activities. Puzzles is another good example of doing things that help build math. And for different reasons. So puzzles build figure ground and visual closure, and then when you do the same puzzle over, you're doing visualization, visual memory. So different activities in different ways. And that is explained in my book. And it takes you kind of step by step how to do a little bit at a time to not overwhelm them, working at their level.
So I have a question for you before I dig in deeper. I mean, I have a number of questions for you. I find this topic really, really fascinating. Are there children who
Great.
are not going to be able to visualize? Or is every child capable of it if we intervene at an early enough age?
So the person that started talking about visualization, and there's another term called eidetic memory and photographic memory, their theory is that all children are born with the ability. So the stress of life could be a birth trauma, could be a turned eye, could be a lazy eye, could be an illness, could be a psychological trauma. The visual skill of making a picture and remembering it isn't as high of priority for survival as some of the other visual skills. So it is given up when there's a lot of stress. So what we want to do is, first of all, see if we can redevelop it back. If not, we use the word imagine and still do similar activities and techniques, knowing that we have to use different verbiage so they can access information and recall it because they don't see the picture. The fascinating thing is people that make visual pictures don't believe that you can't. People that
Right.
cannot, like adults, don't believe that you can because they're totally two different groups. And so it's amazing when you hear them converse with each other. They'll use the exact same argument every time. Well, you dream, don't you? And the other one will say, "Well, I do, but I don't see it." And they don't believe that you can or can't, depending upon which group you're in. And so the key for the teachers, the educators, the homeschoolers, the parents, what do the mom and dad do? And then knowing what your child does. So when you use words like spelling, can you picture the word cat? Well, no, they can't. So let's find another way for them to process it by, sometimes just if a speed reader will process visual information without actually seeing it or hearing
Hmm.
it. So there's a
Hmm.
very high level there to get to that. It's another way to access that.
Wow. Well, I just find this topic so interesting because of my own background.
It
But
really is. You could talk the
yeah,
whole hour on just visualization.
I'm sure we could. I'm sure we could. Okay, so what can homeschooling parents do in terms of creating an environment that is supportive of their kids developing these visual skills?
Well, I created 3-step PDFs of how to create the best visual study environment possible to make it real positive for kids. And so we looked at all of the senses and how they influence your ability to have visual attention. We talk about lighting, we talk about temperature, we talk about water intake and visual memory, and how there's a lot of environmental factors that influence how your vision functions. And now with the onslaught of digital devices, knowing how to take visual breaks. So there is a whole chapter in my book that goes through diet, that goes through hydration, too hot, too cold temperatures, the right colors, the right lights. The nice thing is I did summarize a lot of that. It's on my website, and if there's a free resources, so if you click that, you can print that up and have the right type of desk, the right type of chair, the right type of seating. So Daryl Boyd Harmon, many years ago, studied 7,000 children to find out which position when you're seated at and reading is best for that child to process the information the most efficiently. And so when our kids have poor posture, they have less good breathing. Less breathing brings less good oxygen to the brain. When that happens, those visual sensors, the eyes, when they have to move, those muscles need a lot of oxygen. There's a lot of vascularization in our retinas. So it actually almost makes a tunnel vision situation because the circulation is reduced because of the poor posture. So that's just a
Hmm.
beginning, finding really comfortable desks. I can tell you that I remember when our kids went from a Montessori school to a public school, and I never realized what we make our kids do until I recognized the fact that we're making them go there. They have to keep their shoes on all day. How many of us, when we get home, take our shoes off, right? We're comfortable. They make them sit on hard plastic chairs all day. If I made my staff do that, they would never come to work. They would be really frustrated, right? And
Hmm.
so, or we have a child that's too high or too low to the desk. When I was little, and Dr. Harmon designed these desks, the chairs would go up and down and the table goes up and down. So every year they'd come in and make sure they adjust it for that child's individual size. So individuality is really key to understand what is that child's very best position. And lighting, fluorescent lighting is really, really not great for kids. Natural lighting is much better. And so trying to get a naturally lit environment, good chair, positive. And I have pictures on those downloads. They can do free PDFs on my website, and they can get them just by going to that. And it's easy. It's BrendaMonteCalvo.com, so it's easy to find. And so that's the beginning. The right type of paper, like for example, we always try to get the littles to get into thinner lines. So remember the big fat lines with the dashed line in between? Having the right type of writing paper. If that's too hard for them, why not get them on a erase board, start making it bigger first? We try to go small and tiny too quick for kids. We try to make them hold a pencil too soon so they have bad habits that interfere with handwriting. So our handwriting program that's in the book, probably 90% of kids within 2 weeks can have better penmanship. And so you just have to look at the pieces and put it all together. And there's a lot. I know I grab all this information for everyone, But luckily, we have it summarized. We also have 5 reminder cards on my website. The 5 reminder cards give you ideas of what you can do for math, spelling, reading, handwriting, and composition. And again, those are free downloads. We have for babies, if you have little babies, moms that have babies plus their students, what can you do in the first year, second year, and third year of life to help child develop good visual skills? Because we just had a granddaughter and she's 1. My daughter is also an eye doctor, optometrist. And so day 1, we had black and white targets for that baby to start to track. So zebra toys are good for kids, or pandas with the black and white faces. She tracked that probably the first week she was there exploring her world. Every time you move your eyes, you stimulate everywhere in your brain to start firing. And what's out there? Learning about your world.
Okay, Dr. Brenda, can you tell us about what vision therapy actually looks like? What are the goals for various kids who are using it, and what is involved in vision therapy?
Okay. Sure. So basically, in our practice, we have 3 categories. There are over 4,000 optometrists in the country that practice optometric vision therapy. Vision therapy has been around and practiced by optometrists for over 100 years. There is a little bit of variety depending upon the education of the doctor. In the back of my book, you do have resources to find those that are certified and can provide that top level care. So that's really important. So once you get into your optometric vision therapy program, in our practice, we have 3 giant categories. A lazy eye, turned eye, strabismus, amblyopia is one big group, easy to identify, definitely affects learning. Learning disabilities is the second big group. Brain injury, concussion, stroke are the third big group. So that's big categories. So once you enter our vision therapy practice, what we want to do is redevelop visual skills. So we get a good assessment based on different tests we run about those categories I talked about at the beginning. Visual motor, which is eye movements, eye focusing, and eye alignment. Visual sensory, eyesight, constricted tunnel vision, fusion, depth perception. Third area is visual thinking, right-left understanding, making visual pictures, identifying, matching, discrimination of size, space, and shape, figure ground, closure, association, categorization. So we look at all those parts. Then we design programs in our practice. They start with something called syntonic colored light therapy. A lot of our kids are stressed and they tunnel their vision down, just like it is when you're driving late at night and you feel stressed in the rain and you can't see, and the worse you try, the worse tunnel it gets. So these kids have this in the classroom. We need to open up their peripheral awareness easily by doing special colored light treatment called syntonic phototherapy. Do that for about 4 weeks. Then what we do is we design a program for them to begin working on, we feel visual motor, eye movements, eye shifting is a foundation. So we think that's really important. We see that developed right at birth. We know that has to be there first before we start working on eye alignment issues. In that exact time, we work with visually guided movement. I might have them walking on a rail, watching a target and be able to move through space in good balance while they're breathing. So they'll be doing different activities of visually guided movement. Then we'll do perceptual skills, like example, understanding organization of right and left. We might do body awareness, directionalities, in that. So we give about 4 procedures to work on at home, 20 minutes a day and 5 days a week. And then at the office, about 45 minutes is spent on doing things that we cannot send home, bigger instrumentation, more sophisticated things that need to be guided by the therapist. During that time, they're then reviewed 15 minutes after that 45 minutes of what they do at home. We change it every week. Why do we do that? I think it's really critical for interest, novelty for that child. If you give them the same thing to do every week, they get bored. Boredom does not allow them to develop what we call neuroplasticity and dendrogenesis. That's building new brain cells and getting them to connect to the old ones and getting more dendrite activity happening, which allows the brain to function better. By giving interesting, novel activities that are a little challenging, but not too challenging, you have to guide that properly. And so it's individualized programs. We use lenses, and prisms are big, powerful tools we use both in the therapy room, and we do send a little bit at home. And then we also have designed programs to develop those pieces. It's a lot of thought process goes into making sure that we run it the right way, not too fast, not too slow, depending upon the complexity of that case. We identify kids at the beginning with their histories and things like that. Typically, our program, and again, each program is a little bit individualized. Our personal program, we've been running for over 35 years with very high success rate. We have 4 sessions of light therapy and approximately 30 some sessions of in-office while they're doing home program. Then we do about 6 months of home program. At that time is when I bring my book ideas in there, making sure those new visual skills are converted over to academic successes. So what happens if kids that have very poor reading skills for too many years, their brain says, I cannot do it. So the minute they open a book, their brain says, oh, I can't do it. They shut down, they suppress, they don't track well. When I had them working fine in our office. So the activities here help them bridge that gap, new visual skills to new learning skills, because those habits that get in our way, or holding the pencil the wrong way. You hold it the wrong way, it's going to be hard to help your penmanship. So we have to retrain the brain how to do it easy, comfortable, and feel good about it. No more negative endorphins. We want positive ones. And so then after that, we do a maintenance. What is maintenance involved? Good visual hygiene, good breathing, good posture. Those learning environments that I told you, making sure the learning environment is optimum, looking up out the window, making sure eyes get a break. We have therapy lenses we use, wearing specialty therapy lenses to protect your eyes from all the near work you're doing, keeping your eyes healthy. There's myopia is epidemic right now, so we also guide to make sure we can prevent if possible. And then also we give review their home program. So they've got activities that they did every week for about 30 weeks. So they have over 100 procedures that they can revisit and learn how to increase the difficulty. So it's actually a toolkit. We have actually a whole toolkit that goes home with them that they can use for their education years. And so you can increase difficulty with age and just build all those visual skills so that when that child's ready to go to college, they got everything they need to be successful.
Wow. I mean, it sounds extremely comprehensive, and I'm very impressed that you have obviously built in psychological motivational techniques as well, because as you mentioned, that is such an issue for kids who have had some challenges in whatever subject area. So I really appreciate that. I know my listeners are going to want to, yeah, of course. I know my listeners are going to want to get copies of those free resources that you mentioned. I'm going to put a link to your website. Where is the best place for people to get a copy of your book?
Oh, well, there is a link on my website. It is available on Amazon and all the other bookstores. You can find it. It's called Visual Secrets for Skill Success. And the other thing is, I just want to add, we try to build self-esteem for sure, but many have heard about How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, How to Listen So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber. She did endorse my book. She's actually on my title page. We use that, and I highly recommend all parents read that to help tell kids what they're doing right versus what they're doing wrong. And then they have to be curious what parts they need to fix rather than telling them all the wrong. And so we feel very strongly that by being positive with our verbiage, that does open up that peripheral vision. It does reduce the tunnel issues. So that's where you can find the book, BrendaMontecalvo.com. Amazon has it if you type it in, and it is available in soft and hardcover for you.
Wonderful. Now, if people have questions that they want to ask you about, is there a good place besides the website to connect with you, or is that the place they should go?
We actually have a spot where they can sign up to talk to me. I love to talk to people around the world to give them ideas and strategies where they should begin. I have a great example of a lady up in the Northeast who had been struggling with her son and taken him everywhere. And I listened to him. I said, you really need to see a really high level, highly quality optometrist. And I had a very good friend that was near her that I sent her to. And that child became a good student within a year or two of working with him. And she actually wrote back a beautiful testimony that, because of that direction, she got the right track. Others already are ready to go with ideas of the book. So
Hmm.
it all depends on where you are with your learning program and what your struggle is. So we talk about that during our little consult and the connect with me. And if for some reason there aren't calendar times available, they can just right there connect with me verbiage wise or type it in, and we'll make one available.
Well, that is wonderful. I know people will be interested in talking with you if they recognize their child in our conversation, in your description of kids' visual issues. This has been super fascinating and extremely helpful. So, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today.
You are so welcome. And I just want people to know that, there's two groups, ones that are struggling, but the other group are ones that want to be more efficient. So any student of any age can improve their efficiencies in reading, math, spelling, handwriting. And that's exciting about our brains. They can learn at any time. So even if you want your kids to be at a higher level and they're already doing okay, there's lots of great ideas there for you. So thank you so much for your invitation. And again, thank you for helping me reach people all over the world to understand how they can use their vision to be more successful in learning, life, and even business. And so we really want people to feel good about themselves because I really believe that if you really have better vision, and that's all those visual skills, life's going to be better and we can go on, all of us, to create a better world.